What if you're not exhausted because you are weak, but because leadership became another place where you learn to abandon yourself? You became the woman who can handle it, the one who thinks ahead, the one who notices what nobody else notices, the one who remembers, organizes, explains, decides, carries, leads. You hold the room. You hold the family. You hold the team. You hold the business. You hold the emotional weight. Nobody else even knows is there. And from the outside, it looks impressive. But inside, you are tired in a way sleep does not fully touch. Not because you are not strong enough, but because somewhere along the way, you confused leadership with carrying everything. And that is not leadership. That is survival wearing a professional face. Again, you're not exhausted because you are not strong enough. You're exhausted because you learn to lead by carrying everything. This episode is for the woman who leads a lot in her life. She may lead a business, a team. She may lead projects, clients, children, family logistics, emotional conversations, decisions, schedules, responsibilities, and the invisible rhythm of everyone around her. She's not necessarily the woman with the biggest title. She's the woman people come to when something needs to be handled. And she has learned to be proud of that. But she is also quietly tired of it. She's tired of being the one who has to think about everything. She's tired of explaining herself so people will not misunderstand her. She's tired of saying yes when her body's already saying no. She's tired of being afraid that if she sets a boundary, she will look cold, too direct, difficult, not kind enough, not capable enough, not available enough. And she's tired of leading from fear. Fear that people will judge her. Fear that people will leave. Fear that people will not respect her. Fear that if she does not control every detail, everything will fall apart. Fear that if she is not always strong, someone will finally see how much pressure she's carrying. And the truth is, you do not lead better by controlling more. You lead better by trusting yourself more. And this is the heart of today's episode. Leadership without control. Leadership without self-abandonment. Leadership as self-trust. Leadership as inner authority. Not the loud kind, not the cold kind, not the kind that needs to dominate the room to feel safe. Not the kind that uses pressure, distance, superiority, or constant certainty to prove power. That model of leadership has been praised for a long time. Power as control, power as never showing uncertainty, power as being above people, power as having the final word, power as distance, power as pressure. I'm talking about a leadership model many of us inherited. A model where power was often confused with distance, control, certainty, and emotional suppression. And many women entered those rooms believing they had to become harder to be taken seriously. Less emotional, less intuitive, less relational, less human. And many women entered those places believing they had to copy that energy to be respected. But that's not the only way to lead. And for many women, it's not the true way. Leadership does not become stronger where we disconnect from ourselves. Because if you have to abandon your body, your intuition, your integrity, your softness, your clarity, your boundaries, and your inner wisdom to be seen as a leader, then what exactly are you leading from? You may be leading from a role. You may be leading from pressure. You may be leading from fear. but you are not leading from yourself. If you have to abandon yourself to be respected, the respect is costing you too much. Real leadership begins inside, before the team, before the business, before the clients, before the children, before the partner, before the decision, before the strategy, before the meeting. It begins in the way you lead yourself when nobody else sees the pressure you are carrying. It begins when you can feel the fear and still not let fear take the wheel. It begins when you can hear someone's opinion without making it an attack. It begins when you can say no without writing a whole essay to justify your boundary. It begins when you stop asking, how do I keep everyone pleased? And start asking, what is true here? Because high-achieving women often do not lack discipline. They do not lack intelligence. They do not lack capability. They do not lack responsibility. They lack permission to lead without losing themselves. And that is a different thing. Many strong women have to be trained to be excellent at performance, performing calm, performing competence, performing I'm fine, performing emotional steadiness while their body is screaming for rest, performing leadership while internally feeling like they must not make a mistake, must not disappoint, must not be too direct, must not look unsure, must not look like they need support. And this is how emotional exhaustion enters, not always dramatically, not always with a collapse, but it often enters quietly through 1,000 small acts of self-abandonment. You answer when you need silence. You explain when one clear sentence would be enough. You take on what is not yours because it is easier than letting someone be disappointed. You soften every boundary until it becomes a suggestion. And you say yes because the guilt of saying no feels too uncomfortable. You keep control because trust feels too risky. You call it leadership, but your body knows the truth. Your body knows when you are leading from alignment and when you are leading from pressure. Your body knows when your yes is clean and when your yes is coming from fear. Your body knows when your no is needed and you are swallowing it. Your body knows when you are trying to manage people's perception of you instead of standing in what you know. And that is why leadership is not only a business skill, it is an embodied practice. It lives in your shoulders when they are always tense. It lives in your breath when it is shallow before a difficult conversation. It lives in your jaw when you hold back the truth. It lives in your stomach when you know something is not aligned. But you keep going because you do not want to upset anyone. And it lives in your nervous system when you are trying to create safety through control. Control is what we reach for when we do not feel safe enough to trust. And this is where we need to understand something important. Control can look very responsible. Control can look organized. Control can look productive. Control can look like leadership. But control often comes from fear. And it says, if I do not hold this together, everything will fall apart. And it says, if I do not explain enough, they will judge me. And it says, if I do not stay available, they will think I do not care. It says, if I do not check everything, nobody will do it right. If I do not anticipate every possible problem, I will be exposed as incapable. But that's not clarity. That is anxiety with a plan. And many high-achieving women are praised for it. They become the ones who save the project, the relationship, conversation, the family schedule. They save the client experience, save the emotional atmosphere, save everyone from discomfort. Until one day, they realize they are not actually leading anyone. They are managing everyone's reaction so they do not have to feel unsafe. And that's a very different thing. True leadership does not manipulate, threaten, or control people into movement. True leadership builds trust. It invites, it listens, it sees, it creates enough safety for people to bring their ideas, creativity, honesty, their strength into the room. Because a team is not meant to be a group of people waiting for one person to tell them what to do. A team is meant to be alive. And the same is true in a family, in a relationship, in a business, in a community. When one person controls everything, the whole system becomes smaller. When one person needs to have all the answers, the intelligence of the group is wasted. When one person is afraid of being challenged, everyone else learns to stay quiet. When one person leads from fear, fear becomes the atmosphere. And people may obey fear for a while. They will not give their heart to it. You can create short-term compliance through pressure, but you will never create real commitment through control. Real commitment comes from trust. People follow what they trust. Children respond differently to a grounded parent than to the parent that is controlling from fear. And a team responds differently to a leader who listens than to a leader who only commands. Clients respond differently to someone who is anchored in her work than to someone who is performing certainty because she's afraid for being judged. People feel the difference. They may not always have the words for it, but they feel it. They feel when you are leading from ego. They feel when you need to be superior. They feel when you are trying to prove something. They feel when you are pretending to be calm, but internally pushing. And they also feel when you are present. They feel when your words and action match. They feel when you are honest. They feel when you are steady. They feel when you do not need to make them smaller so you can feel bigger. And that is influence, not position, not title, not control. Presence, integrity, clarity. And those are not soft qualities. They are deep leadership qualities. Integrity means your action match your words. If you speak about boundaries but abandon yours every week, people will fill the gap. If you speak about self-trust but constantly ask everyone else to validate your decision, people will fill the gap. If you speak about calm leadership but create panic every time something goes wrong, people will fill the gap. Integrity is not perfection. It's alignment between what you say and what you choose and how you show up when things become uncomfortable. And also presence is the key. And it means you can be with people without needing to constantly correct them, save them, change them, or turn them into a version that makes you more comfortable. And this matters so much in leadership because many leaders do not lead people. They try to make people into copies of themselves. You should think like me. You should work like me. You should communicate like me. You should care like me. You should do it exactly the way I would do it. But that's not leadership. That's control. Leadership is seeing the person in front of you, seeing her strength, seeing what she brings, seeing what she can grow, seeing what she can contribute that you cannot. Because you do not know everything. You were never meant to know everything. And a strong leader is not the person who has all the answers. A strong leader is the person who creates the conditions where more wisdom, more creativity, and more honesty can enter the room. A strong leader does not need to be smartest person in the room. She needs to be secure enough to let others bring their strength. And clarity means you know who you are and what you stand for, not in a rigid way. Because life changes, business changes, people grow, circumstances shift, you learn, you evolve. But your values cannot change every week because someone disagrees with you. Your direction cannot be rebuilt every time someone has an opinion. Your boundaries cannot depend on whether someone approves of them. And that is exhausting. You will say yes to avoid guilt. You will say no and then explain for 20 minutes because you are afraid of being misunderstood. You will change your mind because someone looked disappointed. You will over-deliver because you are afraid they will not see your value. You will become busy proving you are enough instead of building what actually matters. And this is where leadership and self-trust become the same conversation. Because leadership is not only how you guide others, leadership is how you relate to your own inner knowing. Do you listen to it? Do you trust it? Do you abandon it the moment someone disagrees? Do you make your body shout before you finally hear the no? Do you need exhaustion to give yourself permission to change? And I know this pattern because I have lived it. When I started my business, the heart of it was clean. I wanted to help. I wanted to create something meaningful. I wanted to support women who looked strong on the outside but felt exhausted, unseen, and disconnected on the inside. But very quickly, old patterns entered the room. Overgiving, overexplaining, taking too much responsibility, wanting to be helpful enough, clear enough, available enough, good enough. And I knew that energy. I had lived it through it during the COVID when I was working, mothering, holding the home, children, school, uncertainty, and everything else inside the same day. There were months when I slept around 4 hours per night, and I remember feeling like a zombie. I remember thinking, I cannot keep doing this. So when I felt the same pattern appearing in my business, something in me said, no, not again. I did not want to build a business that costs me the very self I teach other women to come home to. So I had to stop and ask myself a different question. Not only how can I grow this, but what kind of business can I build and still have a life? What kind of work leaves room for my family? What kind of success leaves room for rest? What kind of leadership leaves room for my body? What kind of service does not require self-abandonment? Because if your leadership requires you to disappear, it's not aligned. If your business can only grow by draining you, something is wrong with the foundation. If your role requires you to constantly betray your own capacity, it's not leadership. It's sacrifice dressed as success. And that was a turning point. I started saying no to things I knew would be too time-consuming and draining. I started being more honest about what I was building. I started being clearer with people around me about what I needed, what I wanted, and how they could help. And this is important. I listened. I deeply believe in listening. I want to hear what people around me see. I want to hear ideas. I want to hear where someone has a better way. I want to know what they notice from their perspective. But at the end, the decision is mine and the consequences are mine too. And that is leadership. Not controlling every voice, not avoiding every opinion, not handling your authority away because someone else speaks loudly. Listening, then standing in the decision. There is a beautiful strength in that. It's not hard, it's clear. And clarity does not need to shout. And this is also what I mean by leadership without control. It does not mean there is no structure. It does not mean everyone does whatever they want. It does not mean you never make difficult decisions. It does not mean you avoid conflict. It does not mean you become so soft that there is no direction. Leadership without control means you create direction without killing creativity. It means you create standards without humiliating people. It means you create clarity without fear. It means you listen without losing yourself. It means you allow other people's strength to come forward. It means you build in harmony with people, not over people. And this matters because no leader, no mother, no business owner, no woman carrying a full life knows everything alone. You have a limited view when you are the only one looking. But when you invite honesty, when you invite ideas, when you invite the strengths of the other people, the whole thing becomes richer. Your business becomes richer. Your family becomes stronger. Your team becomes more alive. Your relationship becomes more honest. And you grow too. Because leadership is not only about what other people learn from you, it's also about what you are willing to learn from what they reflect back to you. And that's not always comfortable. A person may say something that touches you. A team member may offer an idea that makes you realize you missed something. A child may tell you the truth in a way that is not polished. A client may ask for something that makes you rethink your process. A partner may point out a pattern and you do not want to see. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can defend, you can control, you can shut it down. You can make them wrong so you do not have to look. Or you can pause, feel the reaction and ask, why did this touch me? And that question is leadership, because a woman who leads from self-trust does not need to defend every part of herself immediately. She can take a day, she can reflect, she can separate the message from the emotional charge. She can ask, is there something here for me to see? And if there is, she uses it, not because she's weak, because she's awake. And that is a strong leader, not the one who never gets triggered, but the one who does not let the trigger lead. And this applies for far beyond business. A mother leads her children every day, not only through instructions, but through her state of mind, through her tone, through her ability to pause, through the way she handles pressure, through whether she teaches responsibility or carries everything herself, through whether she can apologize when she was wrong. And a partner leads inside a relationship too, not by controlling the other person, but by bringing honesty, respect, presence, and boundaries into the space. A woman leads in her friendship when she stops performing fine and starts telling the truth. She leads in her family when she stops participating in patterns that make her smaller. She leads at work when she says, this is my capacity, without guilt. She leads herself every time she chooses alignment or approval. So if you're listening and thinking, but I'm not a leader, I want you to look again. Are you the one people come to? Are you the one who organizes? Are you the one who decides? Are you the one who carries the emotional temperature of the room? Are you the one who keeps the family moving? Are you the one who holds the project together? Are you the one who notices what nobody else notices? Then you are leading. The question is not whether you lead. The question is from where? From fear or from trust? From control or from clarity? From pressure or from presence? From proving or from integrity? From self-abandonment or from inner authority? Because the way you lead others will always reflect the way you lead yourself. If you ignore your body, you will teach people to ignore capacity. If you do not trust your no, people will learn your boundaries are negotiable. If you overexplain every decision, people will feel the doubt underneath your words. If you punish yourself for needing rest, you will create environments where rest feels unsafe. If you lead from fear of judgment, you will build around approval instead of trust. And for high-achieving women, this one is one of the deepest threats. You want to do it well. You want to be kind. You want to be respected. You want to be seen as capable. You want people feel good around you. You want to be fair. You want to avoid being labeled difficult, cold, demanding, too direct, too much. So you soften what needs to be clear. You carry what needs to be shared. You explain what needs to be decided. You wait too long to say the truth. You call it empathy. But empathy without boundaries becomes exhaustion. And this is where self-trust becomes the foundation. Self-trust does not mean you always know the perfect answer. It means you trust yourself to listen, to pause, to feel, to ask for input, to change your mind when needed, to make the decision when it is time, to handle the discomfort of someone not agreeing, to stay connected to yourself when another person is disappointed. That is leadership. Not being hard, not being cold, not being untouchable, not being, but being rooted. A rooted woman does not need to control every leaf. She knows where she stands. She knows what she values. She knows when to bend and when not to. She knows that her softness is not a problem. Her lack of clarity is. She knows that her kindness is not a problem. Her self-abandonment is. She knows that her desire to help is not the problem. Her belief that helping means carrying everything is. And that's the shift. You do not need to become more harder or to become harder to lead. You need to become more honest, more clear, more present, more trustworthy to yourself. And that will feel uncomfortable at first, especially if your nervous system learned that safety comes from pleasing, explaining, controlling, or being needed. A clear no may feel rude. A calm boundary may feel cold. A decision may feel scary. Letting someone else contribute may feel unsafe. And not over-explaining may feel like you're doing something wrong. That discomfort does not mean you are out of alignment. It means you are no longer using the old strategy. And the old strategy will ask to come back. It will say, just explain a little more. Just do it yourself. Just say yes this time. Just check everything. Just keep control. But the deeper wisdom in you knows the cost. You know what happens when you keep leading from pressure. You know what happens when every yes comes from fear. You know what happens when you build a life that looks successful but feels empty inside. And you know what happens when you stop feeling yourself. That is the red light. Do not ignore it. Your body is not trying to sabotage your success. It is trying to tell you when success is being built in a way that cannot hold you. So ask yourself, where am I leading from fear? Where am I trying to control because I do not trust myself enough? Where am I saying yes because I'm afraid of what will happen if I say no? Where am I over-explaining because I am afraid to being judged? Where am I confusing kindness with self-abandonment? Where am I calling it responsibility when it is actually over-responsibility? Where am I not allowing other people's strength to come forward? Where am I making myself the center of every solution and then resenting the weight? Where am I building something that leaves no room for my own life? And one of the most important questions, what would change if I trusted myself here? Not if I controlled more, and not if I explained better, not if I worked harder, not if I become colder. What would change if I trusted myself? And that question will show you a lot. Aligned leadership is not passive, it's not weak, it's not vague, it's not people-pleasing with a spiritual name. Aligned leadership is deeply responsible. It says, I know who I am. I know what I stand for. I know what I will no longer sacrifice to be approved. I can listen without losing myself. I can be kind without abandoning my boundary. I can be open without handing over my authority. I can lead without controlling every person in the room. I can build something meaningful without burning myself down to prove I care. And that is the kind of leadership I believe more women need, not only in companies, in homes, in families, in relationships, in communities, in their own inner world. Because the world does not need more women who are praised for holding everything while losing themselves quietly. The world needs women who lead from wholeness, women who know that strength is not the same as pressure, women who know that softness and clarity can live in the same body, women who knows that boundaries do not make them cold, women who knows that presence can move people more deeply than control, women who know that they do not have to become less themselves to be trusted. You do not have to become less yourself to be trusted. Remember that. And this is where real leadership becomes a return to your own voice, a return to your body, a return to your values, a return to the part of you that knows when something is true, a return to the part of you that can feel the difference between pressure and clarity, a return to the part of you that does not need to perform strength because she is already standing in it. So the next time you feel the urge to control, pause. Not as a technique, but as a moment of honesty, and ask, what am I afraid will happen if I do not control this? What do I not trust here? Is this mine to carry? What is my body already telling me? What would clear leadership look like without overexplaining, without abandoning myself, without making fear the leader? And then listen. Slow down enough to listen. And this is something I deeply believe every leader needs. Time with herself, time where the mind can settle, time where the noise becomes quieter, time where the next clear thing can rise. It does not need to be complicated. For me, it's like mornings, silence, a few minutes of slowing down, not to escape life, but to return to the place from which I want to meet life. Because when the mind is calmer, creativity comes, ideas comes, the right sentence comes, the next decision becomes clearer. You do not need to force everything from pressure. There's inner wisdom that becomes easier to hear when you stop running long enough to listen. And when you lead from that place, people feel it. Your children feel it. Your team feel it. Your relationships feel it. You feel it. Because you're no longer asking the outside world to give you authority. You're standing in it. And this is the quiet power of strong woman who trusts herself. She does not need to be louder. She does not need to control every detail. She does not need to be cold to be respected. She does not need to prove her worth through exhaustion. She does not need to abandon herself to keep everything together. She leads differently because she lives differently. And that is what people trust. Not the performance, not the title, not the perfect words, the alignment, the steadiness, the truth. So let this be the thought you take with you today. You do not have to become harder to lead. You have to come home to the part of you that already knows how to stand. And if this episode opens something in you, especially around feeling not enough, fear of judgment, over-explaining, overgiving, or the pressure to holding everything together, I have a free workbook lying below this episode called The Real Reason You Feel Not Enough. It is a gentle place to begin seeing the stories that keep you proving, pleasing, and carrying more that belongs to you. And if fear of judgment is one of the reasons you struggle to set boundaries, speak clearly, or lead without constantly managing how others see you, you will also find my simple course Releasing the Fear of Judgment and Shame linked below. And if this conversation spoke to you, subscribe to Coming Home to Yourself, because this is exactly what we explore here. Self-trust, emotional steadiness, inner safety, real connection, and the quiet courage of becoming more yourself. You do not lead better by controlling more. You lead better by trusting yourself more. Welcome home.